Hey everyone, how's it going? So I am here to talk about Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. I almost said The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. Ethan Frome was published in 1911. It's one of Edith Wharton's most famous books, but I was recommended it in particular by Juan of Bookish Highlander. I'll leave a link to the video that he made on this book. I highly recommend his video and his channel, and just like a couple days after he mentioned this as a good place to go after I read The House of Mirth, I just happened to find this for free on a shelf at the library. So yeah, seemed perfect, like the perfect time to read it. I also read it as a part of a Gone with the Book readathon that's hosted by Mel over at Mel's Bookland Adventures. I'll leave a link to her announcement video. So Ethan Frome takes place in the countryside in Massachusetts. It takes place in this sort of bleak, desolate landscape during the wintertime in this really small town. Ethan Frome, the eponymous character, is sort of trapped in what you get the sense is a pretty unhappy marriage to a woman named Xena, whom it appears married without really knowing her all that well. And so you get the sense that they sort of married when they were younger without knowing each other very well, and then realized that neither of them was the person that the other thought they were, and so they're both pretty unhappy and depressed. But Xena, his wife, is very sickly and needs a lot of help from a doctor, has tried many remedies to cure her sickness. It's not clear what she's sick with. It sounds like maybe tuberculosis, but again, it's not entirely clear, or maybe asthma. But the ensuing incident of this novel or novella is that Xena needs a maidservant to just help her on a daily basis, because basically her doctor has told her that she shouldn't do anything, really, any sort of work at all. And so they invite Maddie, who is Xena's cousin, whose parents have just died and left her penniless, to come stay with them, to be Xena's maidservant, and also to kind of help her out since she doesn't have a place to stay. And Ethan, because because he's not all that enamored with his wife anymore, becomes infatuated with Maddie, and she is also infatuated with him. And this novella just explores that situation as thoroughly as a book this short could. And if I went any more into the plot, I would basically spoil the whole thing, because again, it's not that long, and even the length of this edition is a bit deceptive, because really the margins are huge. So it's a really quick read. You could probably read it in one sitting. I read it in two. But anyway, it basically seems to me like this could easily have been written as a play if Edith Wharton had wanted to, because the action is so fast-paced, and a lot of the storytelling is through dialogue. Although, another thing that I think Edith Wharton does really well, that you can't really do in a play, is something that I also noticed in The House of Mirth, which is she's really good at making the internal thoughts and feelings of characters be sort of what drives the plot. I don't know quite how this works, but she somehow makes just these internal monologues so gripping. So, in the case of Ethan Frome and The House of Mirth, the events in the plots are not that intricate. They're not plot-heavy books, but they really don't have a dull moment in them. They're both really well-paced and plotted, despite the fact that not much actually happens. And that really reminds me, honestly, of Thomas Mann. For me, to compare a writer to Thomas Mann is pretty high praise. So I really like that sort of interiority, but I also like how it does have that sort of very fast-paced, almost feeling of being driven by fate in terms of what happens, which is a sense I often get when I read plays. So I really like that aspect of it. I think the character of Ethan Frome feels trapped in a way that I think most people will be able to relate to, because I think most people have felt trapped in the way he does, in his marriage, in his situation. At one point he wishes that he could run off with Maddie and just run off with her out west, and make a life out there, you know, divorce his wife and everything, but he realizes that he can't really afford that. So basically he's stuck not being able to run away with his, you know, mistress, so to speak, not really liking his home life, and just basically stuck in a situation where he's never gonna feel happy. And I think that is a very relatable feeling. It was really powerfully evoked. And Ethan, I mean, he's not entirely sympathetic. He does bad things, he says bad things. You know, you do feel bad for Xena at many points, you feel bad for Maddie as well. But, you know, it's also made clear that Xena herself, even though she is on the receiving end of the worst aspects of the plot in terms of Ethan Frome's actions, it's also made clear that she's not a great person either. So it's just a really complex novel with you know, really, you know, flawed human characters, again, like the House of Mirth. And so I loved it. You can probably tell that I loved it. I thought the writing, again, like the House of Mirth, was just great, and the plot was just perfectly crafted. You know, again, reminded me just like those Greek tragedies that just have these perfectly crafted plots and characters. So I really liked Ethan Frome. Thank you, Juan, for recommending it. Very glad I read it. Anyway, if you have read Ethan Frome or anything else by Edith Wharton, give me your thoughts. I will talk to you all in my next video. Bye, guys.